Well, the big concerns, one was that the vaccine was unsafe, that it was causing side effects because, somebody gets a vaccine and then something happens. They have a stroke or they have a heart attack or something happens bad or they have arthritis and they say, see, I was fine. I got the vaccine. Now I'm not fine. It must have been the vaccine that did it. But most of those associations are coincidental associations, not causal. It wasn't really the vaccine that did it. So there's a way to answer that question, which is you do studies looking at people who got the vaccine, compare them to people who didn't get the vaccine, and see whether that particular problem is greater in the vaccinated group.
Welcome to another episode of the Matter Over Mind Experience. I'm your host, Master Trainer, and Weight Management Expert, Narado Zico Powell. And today, I have a world-renowned expert, Dr. Paul Offit, Director of the Vaccine Education Center and renowned expert in vaccines and COVID-19. So you know what we're going to talk about today. We have some good stuff from a man that has decades of experience he's going to share with us today. We're going to talk about misinformation. We're going to talk about his groundbreaking work. We're going to talk about vaccine education and a lot of topics that are shaping the landscape of science today, health-based science. And with that being said, Dr. Paul Offit, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Zico. It's my pleasure.
Thank you for being here, my friend. And with that being said, let's dive right into the nitty-gritty here, right? So with your extensive research, how do you address the misinformation surrounding vaccines and the COVID-19 pandemic?
No, it's really been hard to watch. And here's why I say that. Here's a virus, this unusual virus, SARS-CoV-2, that had unusual biological and clinical characteristics that we isolated and sequenced in January of 2020. Then 11 months later, using a vaccine technology that had never, ever been used to make a vaccine before, messenger RNA, we made a vaccine. Then, remarkably, in the next 7 months, we vaccinated 70% of the United States population, a population in which we never had before an infrastructure to vaccinate adults. Then we hit a wall. 30% of the U.S. population did not want to get vaccinated. As a consequence, about 300,000 people died unnecessarily. We had lost the trust of a significant percentage of the American public. So the question is, why? What happened? And I think in part there was so much misinformation out there about the virus and about the vaccine that it caused people to make bad choices. And so a lot of us have tried to push back on that misinformation, but it's been a fight.
Let's talk about what concerns you tend to come up mostly when around the time that the vaccines were coming out.
Well, the big concerns, one was that the vaccine was unsafe, that it was causing side effects because, somebody gets a vaccine and then something happens. They have a stroke or they have a heart attack or something happens bad or they have arthritis and they say, see, I was fine. I got the vaccine. Now I'm not fine. It must have been the vaccine that did it. But most of those associations are coincidental associations, not causal. It wasn't really the vaccine that did it. So there's a way to answer that question, which is you do studies looking at people who got the vaccine, compare them to people who didn't get the vaccine, and see whether that particular problem is greater in the vaccinated group. And when you do those studies, all those concerns that people had, for the most part, melted away, with the exception of some things. I mean, the vaccine could cause myocarditis, inflammation of the heart muscle. And then you had the J&J vaccine, that Johnson & Johnson vaccine, could cause clotting, including severe clotting, including clotting in the brain that could be fatal, which is why that vaccine was taken off the market last May. So you're always looking out for safety problems, but mostly the safety problems that people bring up aren't really safety problems with the vaccine.
So I guess my couple questions on that then is the concerns, because we know that waiting to not have the vaccine was a risk, and we discussed that, right? So were the concerns of the individuals who said, hey, I want to wait and see what happens, would you even concern what I'm looking at? Would you say these were valid concerns? And also, what was the risk of these concerns?
No, I think you should be skeptical of anything you put into your body. And here you had this unusual or never before used technology, messenger RNA. But realize that at the time that those vaccines were authorized for use, you had tested them in prospective placebo-controlled trials of 70,000 people. So you had that information. That's what you know. You didn't know everything, but you knew that. Was it enough? So some people say, I'm going to wait. They're using this emergency use authorization. I don't trust that. I'm going to wait and see. But remember, a couple thousand, 3,000 people were dying a day from this virus. So a choice to wait was not a risk-free choice. That vaccine is estimated to have saved about 3 million lives. But about 300,000 people died because they made a choice not to get that vaccine. There are never risk-free choices. The trick, the goal is to take the lesser risk. In this case, the vaccine, as we now know, was the lesser risk.
I see. So then during this time, while, we have so much misinformation, and obviously, I mean, even from podcasts, right? And, on TV, like there was a lot of misinformation. I can definitely admit to that as well. So my follow-up question is, what was the Center for Disease Prevention doing, or at that time, to combat some of that misinformation?
Right. First of all, it's like trying to stop Hurricane Katrina with a plastic cup. There was so much misinformation out there. I'll give you an example. There was a man named Richard Besser, who was the head of the CDC back in 2009 during the swine flu pandemic. Right. So I don't know if you remember that pandemic, but kind of swept across the world and including this country. We made a vaccine specific for that pandemic strain in 2009. And he was great. Richard Besser was head of the CDC. He was out in front of the media every other day explaining what this vaccine was, what the disease was, how the vaccine worked. It was great. I saw him at a recent meeting at the National Foundation of Infectious Disease, and I told him that. I said, you were great. You were a model for how to do it. He said, thank you. I could never do it today. 2 reasons: politics and social media.
Oh, wow. Yes, that's definitely powerful. Which leads me to a follow-up question. And I kind of thought about it as I was sitting here. So there's still people who are saying, I'm not going to get vaccinated against COVID-19. So I guess my 2-part question is, 1, what are we saying to those individuals? And 2, are there any improvements that are continually being made as more studies come out on the COVID-19 vaccines?
Well, so the messenger RNA vaccines are updated every year to more closely match the circulating strains in much the same manner that we do it for influenza vaccines. So, but for the most part, it's still basically the vaccine that we started with back in December of 2020 in terms of the quantity of messenger RNA that you're getting. You just sort of change the strains to some extent. So that was the most amazing part for me. I mean, I'm on the FDA Vaccine Advisory Committee. So when we considered basically the 300 pages that we got submitted to us from Pfizer and the FDA, and then the same thing, another 300 pages from Moderna, you felt you had a lot of information, but still, those were 70,000 people, half of whom got placebo. So only 35,000 people had gotten that vaccine at the time that it launched, a vaccine that you knew was going to be given to hundreds of millions of people. So you knew the other shoe was going to drop. You knew there had to be something that you would learn over time that you didn't know then. The only question was, how bad was it going to be and how common was it going to be? Well, as it turns out, it wasn't that bad. The myocarditis caused by mRNA vaccines generally is short-lived and transient, and it wasn't that common. It was about 1 in 50,000 people that it would happen to. So I think all in all, the price paid for this vaccine, the human price that's invariably paid for knowledge, because you always learn as you go, was a very, very small price, all told.
And the reason why I followed up with that question is, today pretty much everyone takes something over the counter, right? You have a headache, you go take Excedrin. Allergy season, we take Claritin, Benadryl, all that stuff. But they all have side effects. And their side effects are there for a reason, right? Because these things do happen and may not be common, but they happen. So my question to you then is, the side effects of the COVID vaccine, it seems to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, that we had a few scenarios where things did happen, right, like the larging of the heart and so on and so forth. And those were taken out of context, or maybe they were like, we put an unnecessary spotlight on them in a way. Is that where you're going with this?
No, it's a good point. But remember, the virus also does it. I mean, the virus also causes myocarditis, inflammation of the heart. The virus also causes clotting, including fatal clotting, and far more commonly. So again, there are no risk-free choices. A choice not to get a vaccine is a choice to risk COVID, the virus, which is in many ways far more serious. So it's also very rare for a vaccine to do something that the virus actually doesn't do. So that's what we learned over time. But a choice not to get a vaccine was not the right choice here. I can tell you, as someone on the advisory committee, when I looked at those, hundreds of pages, I couldn't wait to get a vaccine.
Gotcha.
Really couldn't wait. I practically cried when I got my first dose of vaccine. Finally, I had a way to protect myself other than just, not having human contact.
And wearing masks and stay away from people. Okay, perfect. So, everyone, this is a fantastic interview. I got a couple more huge questions. We're going to talk about the future of vaccines, along with a vaccine that they've been working on for over 25 years as well. So, we're going to get into how that can be beneficial for you as well. But before we do that, I'm going to take a quick break. I want to talk to everyone about one of my favorite companies. I want to talk about the Amino Co. because they make Heal, right? 100% science-backed essential amino acid-based formulation designed to reduce recovery times and improve physical strength, function, I should say, by accelerating muscle repair while helping you maintain an inflammatory response, a healthy inflammatory response. So, with all that being said, what is HEAL? It's an EAA-based formulation, not BCAAs, but EAAs, essential aminos. Also has creatine and whey protein concentrate. That together helps your body recover so well from a hard workout. And you know that when your boy train, your boy goes hard in the paint, and recovery is the most important thing if you want to go out there and crush it every time. If you want to build lean muscle, keep your body fat low, you need to recover from your training, and Heal essentially helps you to do that. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. I use it all the time. I use it in different ways. There are times I use it as an intra if I'm having a long workout, because oftentimes I do upper body and then lower body, and I'll drink it right before I go to the lower body part of my workout, right? So as an intra workout, it gives me a boost in the middle of my workout, or even post workout, again, used as a recovery formula. I absolutely love it. A recent trial compared 1 and 2 scoops of Heal with high quality whey protein, right? And the net balance whole body synthesis, protein synthesis, and breakdown were measured. And Heal was found to be 3 times the response, 3 times larger than whey protein on a gram to gram basis. The response to Heal, again, with the essential aminos, the creatine, and the whey protein concentrate, and how your body can use it and absorb it immediately, the response was found to be 3 times larger than whey protein on a gram to gram basis. Absolutely love this product. And on top of that, when you click in the description of this podcast, you will see the website, aminoco.com/Zico Health, and you get 30% off. 30% off this good tasting, fantastic product. And my favorite thing about this company, because it was initially made for NASA astronauts and then reformulated for regular people like us, even though I don't always consider myself regular, but you know what, I'm going there. But they have all natural flavors as well, which is what I recommend most because they taste very good and I absolutely love them. But with that being said, let's switch back over to the expert over here, Dr. Paul Offit. I have a couple questions for you. First question I want to tackle now is, so with all the misinformation out there and people have died from not taking the vaccine, and we know that there is still misinformation out there. So how are we, and I say we, I mean like your department, the CDC, so on and so forth, is going to tackle misinformation and education of vaccines going forward?
Well, there's a lot of good websites out there that address that misinformation. I mean, we have a website at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia called the Vaccine Education Center, where we try and answer all the questions people have about vaccines and try and address all those issues of misinformation. I have a Substack, which is easily found. You can subscribe. It's free, where I try and address all those misinformation issues that are put out there by people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's like a misinformation machine. And so there and people like David Gorski, Science-Based Medicine, Skeptical Raptor. There are a lot of websites that really constantly address it. Although my favorite is Dan Wilson, who has a website called Debunk the Funk, where he's a PhD that really often goes at the misinformation out there. So there's good websites out there to be found, but often it seems people are much more drawn into the bad websites, which are often, selling something. So it's hard.
Perfect. And I can actually put some of those links in the show notes, which is going to be in the description of the podcast. So I'll make sure to put at least some of those links. And the ones that are not going to be in the show notes, you can listen to that section or watch that section again and get those links to those websites so you can learn more and actually be informed. Now, whichever decision you make, we're not trying to tell you to go left or right. It's your decision. But at least we want you to be informed before you actually make your decision. So I'll make sure those links are there. Now, I want to talk about the virus that you've been working on. I believe it's 25 or 26 years, and it's the rotavirus vaccine. So one, what's the importance of it? What is the rotavirus vaccine, and how can the vaccine be beneficial to us?
Right. So rotavirus is a virus that infects babies typically between 6 and 24 months of age. It causes fever, vomiting, and diarrhea. Before there was a vaccine, and our vaccine was introduced in the United States in 2006 as part of the routine vaccine schedule for children. It would cause about 75,000 hospitalizations every year because of severe dehydration, and it would cause about 60 deaths a year. We virtually eliminated hospitalizations in this country since that vaccine has been introduced. It's been out there for now, 17, 18 years. In the developing world, or in the world, rotavirus kills about 500,000 babies a year. So that vaccine is now, thanks to Bill and Melinda Gates, is now getting out there into the world where it's saving, hundreds of lives a day. So it's the professional accomplishment of which I'm most proud. I was glad to be part of Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, working with Fred Clark and Stan Plotkin to develop that vaccine. It was a quarter of a century long effort, but it was worth it.
So correct me if I'm wrong here, Dr. Offit. Is the vaccine already in wide circulation?
Yeah, no, it's been used routinely, given to all babies starting in 2006.
Okay, perfect. That's awesome. And you said you worked on the vaccine for over 25 to 26 years, correct?
That's right.
So then follow me up on this and make sure I fully understand, make sure my audience gets it. So what exactly is the rotavirus, and what is the what's the risk of not taking the vaccine?
Right, so rotavirus commonly circulates just like influenza or respiratory syncytial virus or COVID. I mean, those viruses are out there every winter. A choice not to get a vaccine, and most children don't make that choice. Most mothers don't make that choice. The vaccination rates for this vaccine is about 95%. It's given just as a little squirt in the mouth, so it's not a shot. So it's easily taken. And, for those who don't get it, you run the risk of catching rotavirus, but a large percentage of babies get that vaccine. And as a consequence, most pediatric residents don't even see babies in the hospital anymore with rotavirus. Whereas before there was a vaccine in our hospital, we would see about 400 babies every winter with severe dehydration from that virus. So I think the vaccine's done an enormous amount of good.
Perfect. So I'm hearing that this is something else to look out for those who are, if you're pregnant or if you have a young one, is the rotavirus vaccine. If you want to watch this episode, Dr. Offit is a great resource as well. And he knows a lot about this, and he personally worked on it. So he has a lot more information than what he's even sharing right here. And with that being said, Dr. Offit, this is your moment now. If you want to drop anything, any links that you may want to think about, if my audience needs to reach out to you, whatever information you have to provide, you can provide it this time.
Well, take a look at our Vaccine Education Center website. It's Vaccine Education Center at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, but it is a wealth of information about vaccines. So that will help. Although I was just following up on the rotavirus story, we now have a 1-year-old granddaughter, and that vaccine is given at 2, 4, and 6 months of age. So I went to her pediatric appointment at 2 months of age and got to hold her while she was getting that rotavirus vaccine, that 26-year effort. So life came full circle for me.
See, there we go. Saving lives. I love it. The information, the website for their website is also going to be in the show notes. I think the show notes is going to be zekehealth.com/vaccines. I think that's going to make that the show notes. But easy, don't have to remember that. The show notes is going to be in the description of the episode. So click below the episode, the show notes are there. You can access all this wonderful information. With that being said, Dr. Offit, this is a fantastic episode. Thank you for being here. Everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please, 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 I urge you, take your health seriously, because you are the CEO of your own body. You want to be as informed as you can be when you make a decision, but it's always a serious decision. And with that being said, enjoy the rest of your day, fam.